Hello and welcome in this new section that we're going to see more about the vCenter server. So as I tell you in the preview sections, when we create our lab, we create some virtual machine inside physical hosts. And as you see in this example, when we want to manage our hosts, we need to connect directly to the host through the IP address and the username and the password for each of those hosts so we can manage them. Then I told you that if we want to do some other advanced task with those hosts to manage our data center more efficiency, we need to have the vCenter server. So for example here, if we want to move a virtual machine from this host to another host, we need to use the vCenter. If we want to create some height availability, we need to use the vCenter. If we want to use the DRS and some lot of other tools or other feature, we need the vCenter. So for that, I told you that we're going to install a vCenter server and connect to that vCenter server, and inside that host, we're going to add all our hosts of our data center. So, what is vCenter and what the requirement to have a vCenter server in our data store? So, the vCenter server for Windows hardware requirement, as you see here, when you install a vCenter server on a virtual machine or physical server running Microsoft Windows. Of course, when we want to install the vCenter, we can install this vCenter server inside a virtual machine or install it directly to a physical server. And for that, we need to have a Microsoft Windows. And to be more specific, you need Microsoft Windows Server 2008 or Server 2012 or the last Server 2016. That means you need a Windows Server operation system. So your system must meet specific hardware requirements. You can install vCenter server and the platform service controller on the same virtual machine or physical server on a different virtual machine or physical server. When you install vCenter server with an embedded platform service controller, you install vCenter server and the platform service controller on the same virtual machine or physical server. Because when we want to install the vCenter, we have two options. We have the option to install the vCenter with embedded platform service controller in one virtual machine or in one server, or we can install them in two different machines or two different physical server. So when you install the vCenter server with an external platform service controller, first install the platform service controller that contains all of the requirement service on the one virtual machine or physical server, and then install the vCenter server on the vCenter server component on another virtual machine or physical server. That means if we want to install the vCenter in two separate machines, we need to install first the platform service controller, then we can install the vCenter server. Then there are an important information that you should know is about the database. vCenter need a database. He can't work without a database. For that, you can use an embedded PostgreSQL database for environment up to 20 hosts and 200 virtual machine. That means vCenter server come with an embedded database that's called PostgreSQL database. This database can support up to 20 hosts. That means with that vCenter that use PostgreSQL database, he can manage up to 20 hosts and up to 200 virtual machines. If your environment have more than 20 hosts, you need to use an external database. You can't work with the PostgreSQL database. In this case, you need a Oracle database or some other database that can manage more than 20 hosts. So if you have a bigger environment, you should use external database. Then we have the hardware. In the hardware, when we want to create a tiny environment, that means up to 10 hosts and 100 virtual machine, we need to have at least 2 CPU and 10 gigabyte of RAM. Of course, in our lab is a very tiny environment. We use only 2 hosts, maybe 3 hosts, and less than 15 virtual machine. So we need the tiny environment hardware requirement. That means we need only 2 CPU and 10 gigabyte. But in the real environment, you can install the vCenter server inside a machine with only 8 gigabyte. With 8 gigabyte, your installation complete successfully. But here the requirement is 10 gigabyte to work without any problem. Of course, you will feel the difference when you have more than 2 hosts. In our example, we have only 2 hosts, so 8 gigabyte work perfectly without any problem. If we start using about 8 or 9 or maybe 10 hosts, we start feeling that our vCenter server is too slow with 8 gigabyte. But as I tell you, you can start work with the 8 gigabyte as we have a limit hardware in our lab. But in the real environment, of course, you need to give the vCenter server 10 gigabyte minimum. Then we have the small environment up to 100 hosts and 1000 virtual machine. You need 4 CPU and 16 gigabyte. We have the medium environment, need 8 CPU, 24 gigabyte of RAM, and large environment, 16 CPU, 32 gigabyte, etc. Then we have the storage. For the storage, it's not a problem. Of course, always we have more than enough of the storage. In our example, in my laptop, I have 500 gigabytes, so it's more than enough to work with the vCenter. Of course, you can see here a detail about the different environment and the requirement storage. However, through the course, you will discover that you need to use external storage, and of course, always the external storage have more than enough space for our environment. Then we have the software, the VMware vCenter Server Appliance. To let you know about appliance is we have vCenter Server and we have vCenter Server Appliance. The appliance version is come with his own operation system, build it on a Linux operation system. That means if you have a Windows Server license, you can install that Windows Server license in a machine. Then you install the vCenter server inside this machine. If you don't have a license for Windows Server or you want use it, then you can use the vCenter Server appliance that comes with its own operation system. So we'll see it later in details. So the VMware vCenter Server Appliance and Platform Service Control Appliance can be deployed on ESXi host 5.5 or later. That means if you want to install the vCenter server inside a virtual machine, that virtual machine should be hosted in a ESXi host 5.5 or later. In our situation, we use only the last version 6.5, so we don't have a problem. Or on a vCenter server instance 5.5 or later. This is another software you can use it to install the vCenter server. So for that, when you want to manage your vCenter server, you can use your browser from the operation system Windows or Mac OS. Here is a list of the requirement software or requirement browser that let you connect to the vCenter server and start managing it, like you see Microsoft Internet Explorer version 10, Mozilla Firefox version 34, and Google Chrome, and the same for Mac OS. So this is the important information that you should know about the vCenter server, and in the next video we'll start installing our vCenter server inside a virtual machine, but in your real environment you can install it in a virtual machine inside a host, or you can install it in a physical host. In our example here, we're going to install it inside a virtual machine that have Windows Server 2012. So see you in the next video for more details.